Hey, let's go ahead and talk about the Photoshop assignment that we're going to be working on. The Photoshop assignment, you can kind of see the underwater scene. This is kind of the first one that we were looking at. What we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be taking a background, and then we're going to be going through and adding animals and kind of adjusting animals and doing those kinds of things. So for example, in order for us to get these pictures where they are, we must go into the files, and then we need to go in here to images, and then from there we need to click on these different areas, and so you can kind of click on these and kind of download them as well. And so let's go ahead and look at this first scene. It's this picture here. We can look at this scene. Let's go ahead and click on this one, and it kind of will show you what it looks like. This is an example of kind of what we're looking at a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and close this. And so this is the scene that we're going to be clicking on. So you can kind of see this is kind of a good underwater scene. The one we want to do in this class is we're going to look at habitat, just the habitat, which looks like this, or you can do habitat 3. I don't care which one you'd rather do. I'm going to go ahead and do this one here, the habitat 3. So I'm going to hit download so I can download this file. I'm going to go ahead and save it to my downloads. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on this button, and I'm going to go ahead and show it in the folder. So that way it'll pop up here, and I can right click, and I'm going to go ahead and open this with, now remember, to begin with, we must sign into the Adobe Creative Cloud. In order to sign into the Adobe Creative Cloud, you must sign in not with your email, but it's actually with your username. So your username, your number, whatever it is, at besd.net. If you do not do it this way, you only have a 7-day trial and it will close down. So not your email, your S number, and then at besd.net. Afterwards, it'll switch over to this. So then you can go into here, and that way you can open Photoshop. Or once you're signed into the Creative Cloud, you can just go open with, and then we can go to Photoshop, and it should be able to get us here. Okay, so here's our basic background, so you can kind of see how that looks. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to actually grab some of these files once again. So I'm going to go ahead and hit close here. I'm going to go ahead and grab one of these fish really quick just so we can kind of practice it. I'm going to go ahead and grab the blue crayfish, and I'm going to go ahead and download this one. Once again, we're going to download it to our downloads. Now what I want to do is I want to add that fish. So if I go into here, I can go File and Place Embedded, and then from here I can go ahead and go into Downloads. I can scroll down and find the actual file that I do have, which is just right here, my blue crayfish, and we'll go from that point in just a second. So again, I just happened to lose my lobster there, and so I'm just going to go ahead and do it again. Go Place Embedded, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on the crayfish where it was, where I had saved it to, and then once it's like this, all I have to do is press Enter to get rid of this X. I can resize it at this moment if I'd like to. If I just grab the corner, it'll keep the ratio the same. And so, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep it a little bit bigger because it's a little bit easier to edit while it's bigger. Okay, right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of add a window and go here and hit my layers. So my layers will show up over here. I'm going to kind of make this a little bit bigger, and so then you can kind of see here's my different layers right here. Now one thing we have to do to make this adjustment, you see this little box right here? This means I can't really edit it, and so what I have to do is right click and rasterize the layer. Okay, now my layer has been rasterized, and so now what I need to do is get rid of all this white area. I'm going to go ahead and show a couple different fish. Your assignment is to take probably about 6 of these fish and put them on the background, but I'm going to show you a couple different fish that you can do, and then the process is similar with each and every one of these. So let's begin. I'm going to go ahead. The type of editing I like to use is non-destructive editing, because if I could just use the erase tool and go ahead and try to erase all this, which is fine, but what happens with that is it's destructive, and if I make a mistake, I can never fix it. So I'm going to teach you a way that we can do non-destructive editing. So we'll go ahead to begin with, and we're going to use this tool here, the well, for this one we're going to use the magic wand tool. So you click on this, hold it down, go to the magic wand tool, and click on the white. Now as you can see, it's kind of selected a lot of our white, but there's certain spots that you can see that have been kind of cut off, like right down here, as well as like these very little tips here. For now, it's okay. We're going to make it work like this, and then we'll kind of make an adjustment afterwards. And so let's go ahead, and from here we're going to go ahead and click on the layer mask tool, which is this square with a circle. Now your layers might be down here, it might be up here. It depends on how you start it. So right now we're going to go ahead and click on the layer mask tool with that selection, and you can see I did it backwards. Right here, everywhere my selection was in the sky stayed white, and here turned black. So let's just undo that. Let's make a quick inverse. We'll go select, inverse, and now we'll click on this layer mask again, and there it got rid of our background. Now, you can kind of see there are some issues. To zoom in, if I hold the Alt key, I can use the mouse wheel and I can zoom in and out. Okay? And so let's zoom in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and select this area with my magic wand tool, and you can kind of see it did a pretty good job grabbing it. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to Edit and Fill, and I'm going to fill it in black. And I'm going to hit OK. And there we go. So we're going to go ahead and do the same here. I'm going to go ahead and select that, go Edit, Fill, and black. Now make sure that as we're doing this, I have selected this box. If I select this box, it's just going to fill the area in black, but this box doesn't. Now, if I want to do a little bit of a touch-up and do something a little close, you can kind of see like right on this edge, you know, is something that we need to kind of change. If I grab my paintbrush, I can adjust my paint size, so I'm going to make my paintbrush a little smaller. If I paint in black, I can actually take off this edge. Now I'm going to try to get a harder brush so that everywhere it touches the edge, it will kind of erase. Now, my brush is a little big. I'm going to make it a little smaller so I can kind of go right here along this edge. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, and I'm going to try to paint it. Now, if I paint this and say like I make a mistake, and I just kind of go like that, I'm like, oh crap, that's a bad mistake. I can undo. But also, if I paint white, I can actually kind of take this back and get that edge exactly how I need it to be. And so the cool thing with the layer mask is, so for example, if I paint black and I'm like, hey, I don't want this part in here, I don't like how that looks, I can adjust that. But if I make a mistake, I can always paint in white and say, hey, actually, I wanted this back. Okay? And so that's a cool way of using the layer mask tool. So like right here, I need to add this in here. I need this to be white, and so I'm just going to use the layer mask tool and add that portion of the belly in. It's just an easier way of doing that. Same thing here, and same thing here. I'm just going to kind of add this part back in here. And again, to zoom, all we have to do is use the Alt key and the other key. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust this really quick, and we'll go from there. So with this animal, once we have our lobster kind of how we want it, we need to go to Edit and Free Transform. And so this will allow us to make our image smaller. So I can kind of make this a little bit smaller. I'm going to kind of move him after, kind of just drag him down here and set him there. Okay? And so you can kind of see I do have a line across there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my layer mask, and I'm going to get my black brush and make it a little bit bigger just so it's quicker and easier to do. I'm just going to paint that area away. Okay? So that's a quick, easy way of doing like the lobster. Now if I was to look at another file, let's go ahead and see one that's a little bit different, that we'll have to do a little bit differently. Let's go ahead and do this fish here. Okay, and so this fish, well, that's similar to the other. Let me find one that's a little bit different. Okay, let's go ahead and do this fish here. This fish, we're going to use a different tool, which is called the, I'm going to go ahead and just download this one. We're going to use because you can kind of see the background's a little bit different. And so we're going to use a different tool. Let's go ahead and get this fish in here, and then I'll talk about it a little bit more. So this, we're going to go ahead, and I'm just going to grab the last one that I had. It looks like it saved it in a different location, so I'm going to show it open in folder, and it did move it for me. I'm just going to slide this over to my other screen, and actually I'm just going to kind of drag it and pull it onto my screen here. But you can save it just like we did before, or you can do it you can open the folder and just kind of drag it and put it in. Okay, I'm going to hit enter so I can edit the fish. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make this. First, I got to right click and rasterize the layer. Again, sorry about that. We're going to go ahead now and we're going to use the quick select tool, which is just right here. And this tool, if you actually click on any of these, you can actually highlight over them. And then for now, I can highlight and it'll kind of show me how this tool works. And so, and you can use the learn how and it'll kind of teach you a little bit more. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and select this outside of the fish, and you can kind of see it does a pretty good job of making that selection. However, I did get a mistake here. Now to change that, I can click up here and do the minus, and I can just kind of select that. You can kind of see it did a little bit better. I'm going to kind of click on here and see if I can get it to grab that edge a little bit tighter. It's doing a little bit better there again. And looks like that is an easy way to do this fish here. So the other thing, I'm going to kind of add a little bit more here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see it. One of the keys to actually doing any of these animations or any of these editings is really to make sure that you're nice and close so you can kind of see what is going on. So I'm going to go ahead and select my inverse, and then I'm going to click on this again, and you can kind of see it went away. Now I have an edge here. I need to get rid of that edge. I can grab my paintbrush, just make sure I'm on the layer mask tool selection, and I can go ahead and get rid of that area and that side. And so that's kind of what I can do there. And once again, I can just edit that fish. I can hit edit and free transform or Control T, and then I can adjust the size, and I can move that fish wherever I would like. So I'm going to show another fish that we can do, and so we're going to go ahead and look at this one. We're going to go ahead and download this fish so you can kind of see it. And so we're going to download it into my downloads. It's a coral fish. We'll go back into Photoshop. We're going to go ahead and go File, Place Embedded. And I'm going to go into my downloads. I'm going to kind of show it how I can kind of see it quicker. So I can just kind of click on it. There's my coral fish. And we're going to go ahead and place that here. Now, with this fish, same type of a thing. First thing first, we need to right click and rasterize it. Now I can edit it. So next thing I need to do is use the quick. I'm going to kind of show the different tools. So Magic Wand tool is the first one we've used. You can kind of see I can click on that. If I hold shift, I can click on the next one. But you can kind of see with the Magic Wand tool, it's kind of selecting bits and pieces more of my fish. I can hit the Alt key and minus it, so I can click and say, hey, I don't want that. But it's not quite getting what we want. And I still have all these other spots around that is not grabbing. So sometimes Magic Wand tool is a good way to start. If I use the quick select tool, I can hit the shift key and I can add a little bit more and kind of go around the edge. Okay, and you can kind of see, hey, we're getting there, but now we're running into an issue like right through here. And so the next tool I'm going to teach you is the lasso tool. If I hold the shift key or the alt key, shift adds,
and minus subtracts. Now remember, I'm selected the outside, so I'm going to have to, right here I want to add to that selection. So if I hit shift, I can actually draw a line, and then what I can do is I can make a circle and it'll add to that selection. So you can kind of see that's how that's working. If I use the Alt key, I can actually cut in here and get rid of some of this. So once again, I forgot I'm on the outside, so I want to hit shift to get rid of it. And so for example here, I need to get rid of some of this. I'm going to use the minus and kind of get rid of some of these selections that are there on the fish itself. So I can kind of get rid, I need to get rid of this selection here because I use the magic wand tool, so you can kind of see it did select some of the things that I didn't want it to. Once again, and then I can use the minus as well because I want to make sure that I'm not getting this part of the fish's mouth, and so on. And so with this tool, the lasso tool gives you a lot of flexibility. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of grab this portion and just have that all be kind of together, and so that I can kind of see it. So as you can see, this is kind of how that fish would work. Once again, so if I want to get rid of the outside, I can hit select and hit the inverse, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit this button there to get rid of the outside. You can kind of see I still have an edge. Take my paintbrush, get rid of the edges, and so on. Hit Control T or edit and free transform. I can make my fish a little smaller. Also, if I wanted to, I can flip it around. So say I can go to edit and transform and flip it horizontally or vertically, and I'll just flip it that way. You can kind of see I do have that edge. Use that paintbrush and just paint it onto the layer mask, and there's my fish. Okay, now another thing that I was going to show you when it comes to some of these fishes is that we need to kind of change how exactly we are doing, how we're going to make it look like it fits in here. You can kind of see this lobster here. It's kind of bright for the area that it's in. If I was to move the lobster, so I'm going to go up here and click on the crayfish. Say I wanted to move him over here in the shadow. Now you can see he really looks bad because he doesn't really fit. And also this part is on top. So let's fix this first, like his tail. Let's say I wanted to make it look like he's behind. I can click on the layer mask, paint it in black, and then I can make it look like he's coming from behind there. So now I need to adjust his size. So if I go to my adjustments, if I go to Windows and go to my adjustments, I have all these different layers that are right here in my adjustments. Now we're just going to use the brightness and contrast. And so I can click on this, and what this will do is I'm going to try to get this to look more like how you guys will see it. I'm going to go to Essentials. This is more like how you guys will look. So I can click on my adjustments and click on the brightness. Now you can kind of see I accidentally got two. I'm going to delete that layer. If I click on here and I make an adjustment, my whole screen adjusts. I don't want that. And so what I want to do is I want to make it only this. I can do this two ways. I can right click here on the text and I can say I want to create a clipping mask. What that does is it adds this little arrow. Another way of doing that is I can hold down the Alt key, and what it'll do is you can see that arrow is right there, and I can change, it'll look like that, and I can click that and do that same thing. Now if I make an adjustment, if we look at that crawdad down there, you can kind of see I make an adjustment and it's changing how that is. Now another thing we can do is we can add another adjustment. Say I wanted to add the color, change the color a little bit so that he looks a little bit different. Once again, I hold the Alt key, hit it down, and then I can make my lobster actually be a different color. I can say, hey, it's actually a yellow lobster. If I want to get rid of the color, I could just click on the saturation and go all the way down. But that's kind of how we would do this. And I'm going to make it a little darker so it looks like he's in that corner. So guys, in a sense, that's what you end up doing with all the different shapes. And so you use those tools and you put your fish in how you would like. I hope that helps and you enjoy this project.